personally, I think that the reaction or the remarks made by James Cleverly are eye-poppingly absurd. I mean, it's no answer to say, well, you've had your protest, now go away. I mean, it's pathetic. The point about these protests is that they cross that line that I just said into harassment, intimidation, and so on. And the point is that there are laws on the statute book to prevent that. The problem has been that the police are remarkably unwilling to use those laws, which is a puzzle that none of us has actually, that I've not seen properly explained. But it's the Home Secretary's responsibility to ensure that the law of the country is actually enforced.
Do you think it is clear-cut what constitutes harassment and what didn't? I keep coming back to this thing we did at the beginning of the week. We had Annalise Dodds on, the Labour chairman of the party, and people were shouting at her, Annalise, you can't hide, you support genocide. And she said that was fine. She said, I mean, she didn't like it, but she said it was poor. But to me, that sounds intimidating. That sounds like harassment to me. But she said, you know what, that's just being a politician.
I think it very much depends on the context. If you have, for example, I can't remember what precisely those circumstances were, but if you have a large crowd outside, say, a politician's front door shrieking this, then I would say that was harassment, bullying, and intimidation. If you have, a crowd in the street and the person is just passing by, it's unpleasant, maybe, but it's not harassment and intimidation. If it is directed at her particularly, if it's saying, you, Annalise Dodds, or whoever it is, are somehow, if it gives the impression to that person or to anybody else that politician is being personally targeted with a view to pressuring that person to change her mind about the position she's taking in Parliament, for example, I would say that crosses the line.
What about protesting outside Parliament and projecting from the river to the sea onto Big Ben?
Well, the projection onto the Elizabeth Tower, I understand that to be a crime in itself, an offence in itself. You don't project stuff onto Parliament, but I'm not quite sure about that, but I think that's the case. The slogan in particular, I personally, and many others share this view, regard it as a slogan that basically calls for the eradication of Israel, which would mean the slaughter of Israelis. And it's a genocidal chant in that case. And every Jew in Britain who saw that projected on the cradle of democracy will have shuddered being personally intimidated and frightened by that. I think it was an absolute disgrace. And I think many non-Jews, they write to me in great number, many non-Jews who are very decent and very troubled by what they're seeing, have come to the conclusion that was a kind of watershed moment. It's bad enough you have hundreds of thousands of people screaming slogans which in effect or actually are saying death to the Jews on the streets of London week after week, but to have it actually projected, to use the cradle of democracy, the Houses of Parliament, as a billboard for such incitement, has struck people as a step far too far and one that they view with utter dismay.
Giles, you're a big free speecher, of course, as well, because of what you do. Where are you on all of this?
I'm not that big of a free speecher. I'm probably a little bit more draconian than people would expect. I believe in free speech for myself, but I mean, I within certain parameters. For example, I'm not that bothered about the Parliament thing. If you remember, Gail Porter was projected nude onto the Houses of Parliament in 1999 as part of a sort of FHM For Him magazine publicity stunt to people to vote for her for the world's sexiest woman or something. And it's horrid. And a misuse of Parliament. I didn't mind it that much. Those little things like that, or the Annalise Dodds things, when some of the protesters behave appallingly and target people, besmirches the whole notion of the protest. I mean, particularly as I recall, on October the 7th, before the Israeli response, when the news of the Hamas thing was just coming through, I believe there were protesters outside the Israeli embassy making a song and dance about it and taking pleasure, and that sort of thing is disgusting, and wants to see them locked up and thrown away, whatever. But I think I agree entirely with Melanie that what Cleverly has said, typically for him, is cloth-eared and stupid and dim-witted about, frankly, the point's been made. That's just a sort of school teacher thing. Yes, you've had your fun. That's not the point. It's not. They want to affect this change. I don't. I've never been. Well, I went on the anti-Semitism march, but otherwise I've never been on a march, and I don't really think protest is. I don't like civil disobedience. Partly that's because I have a voice, and I think although I am on the side of. I talked about it on my podcast last week, and was given a slightly hard time in the Orthodox Southampton synagogue last night, where I was in conversation with the rabbi in front of a large audience, because last week on my podcast I said, I'm a Zionist and I support Israel, and I will go further than any non-Jew in support of its right to defend it. But as it goes to 30,000 and innocent people are being killed, I am struggling to hold my position of support for it, and don't really want to. And this did make me unpopular, and people cancelled their tickets to come and see me yesterday, although the tickets were free, so they weren't making as big a statement, and the place was still full, but there was a sort of slight heat around it. And the thing that I think about the protests is that we Zionists, we supporters of Israel, we do have the ear of the media, and we do have the ear basically of world governments around the world. We do have that, and they broadly don't. So I think they should be allowed to protest as far as we can possibly let them, because stopping them is too like Russia. It's too like Putinism. I'd like Israel to change its policy a little bit, and I'd like us to win the argument by without silencing the opposition.
Giles, what is your view about, and I feel that we've been debating this forever, and we will continue to, which is from the river to the sea, because pretty much everyone that we speak to has a slightly different version of what they feel about it. Some people, Jewish and not Jewish, say it's, you're calling for the slaughter of Jews, of Israelis. Other people say different things. There's various degrees of it. How do you view that chant?
It's so interesting, and I can hear, and Melanie is furious about it as a genocidal, as an incitement to genocide, and I share that fury. If it is so potent. We Jews don't like really strongly worded rhyming things, because they were so popular in former times, whether it was Ein Volk, Ein Reich, Ein Führer, or the Judenraus speeches, or the Kinderkirche, Küche, that kind of things. Not what Jews do. We don't really do towering ascending tricolor from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. We don't really have rhythm, to be honest. We're not sort of into that sort of thing. It sounds so genocidal. It sounds so grotty. From the river to the sea is just a description of the shape of a country. And saying we'll be free. And I am told, I've read, I know nothing about it, Melanie will know better, that Likud have some variation of that theme, and it's just, is it fully exclusive? I guess it is. Someone as thick as Charlotte Church doesn't know. She just sings the song that's one minute it's bread of heaven, next it's from the river to the sea. She sings whatever's going on. I'd be interested to know how it goes down in France or Germany or Italy, where it doesn't rhyme. Do they have some other chant that they sing? It's just that it just sounds so horrible. It has such a sort of murderous beat to it. I'd like to know. I wouldn't want it sung when I was around.
Okay.